Okay, so for those of you who were here yesterday and those of you who were not here yesterday, I'm going to do a recap. We passed out a bunch of papers. So if you were not here yesterday, you need to come up here so I can give you some of these items. Cool? Don't leave. Steak.
Is that it?
Stay. Kim, come back.
Yeah, that's what it says, but you have to scroll down.
Don't be dead.
I love it. April is actually very
You get 2 of this one.
Are you okay?
All right, so as I was saying, you guys hush up. As I was saying, if you were not here yesterday, I passed out a lot of papers and I just gave them to the people who were out. And this is the organization of how these items should fall into your table of contents in your binder. So if you would take a moment just to kind of organize yourself. The item that I just gave you that is on the AV sheet, we are not taking that as a binder assignment activity, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. I started talking about your social issues paper yesterday, and I feel like I probably need to revisit it quite a bit. We're working on this activity, on this project. We're working on it, honestly, in steps. Okay, so we're going to be taking quite a number of different steps to accomplish the writing of this paper. And our first step is that we are going to evaluate and look at all kinds of different ideas that are out there. And the first thing that we're going to do to accomplish this task is we are going to read an essay. And this essay is a model of what you guys are going to be doing in your paper. And it is titled The Best Kept Secret on Campus, and it is by Rosie Anya. And it is in our bedroom reader, and I believe it's on page 74. Okay, so open your bedroom reader to page 74, if you would please. And we are going to be using this graphic organizer to support our reading. Okay, the reason that we're reading this essay is because it is very similar in structure and style to what you guys are going to be doing. You are going to be writing a paper on a social issue. You may choose your social issue, with the exception of abortion. I do not want to read any papers on that. All right? And I want you to be cognizant of the fact that as you choose your topic, try to pick something that you can write about in a maximum of 4 pages. All right? Don't pick something that is so large that you can't examine it in 4 pages. And pick something that you are very interested in that you would like to do additional research on. Cool? All right. So reading this essay just kind of gives you an idea of what your paper is going to look like, how your sources are going to be integrated. And I think that the book does a really good job here by explaining in the margins some of the choices that this author has made and why this author has made these choices, because they're going to be relevant to the choices that you guys make as well. All right, so as we have done in the past, we are just going to kind of keep a log of what's going on. I would like to take this up just for a little homeworky grade, just to make sure that you're doing it because it's important. Trying to zoom in more. Can y'all see that?
Yes, ma'am.
There we go. All right, so notice we have our heading up here. We don't have a header here, but they probably have trouble reprinting that. But you would have your last name and your page number. And then, of course, you have your MLA heading. And while this doesn't necessarily look like it's double-spaced, it's intended to be double-spaced. It's just the way they had to reproduce it to publish it in the book. All right, you'll have your name, my name, AP English 11. You will have the due date, and then you will have a title. And you guys, I noticed you have a lot of trouble coming up with titles. And on the photo analysis essays that I printed, a lot of people just wrote the word title, which does not equal a good title because it's not really a title. So your title should suggest the scope of your subject. All right? It should be just kind of a summary of everything that you're covering in your paper. And here she's covering the best kept secret on campus. She's talking about something that happens on campuses, and I'm assuming college campuses, but it could be high school campuses. Notice that it's not bold, it's not got quotations around it, it's not italicized, it's all the same font. And here it says that the title arouses readers' curiosity. Okay, I would like to know what the best kept secret on campus is, and if it's high school or college, so her title is effective, it's working. Are we good? All right, let's read this first paragraph. The college experience, as depicted in advertising and the movies, consists of happy scenes. Students engrossed in class discussions, partying with friends, walking in small groups across campus. Such images insist that college is a great time of learning and friendship, but some students have a very different experience of emotional and psychological problems, ranging from anxiety to depression to acute bipolar disorder. These students endure social stigma and barriers to treatment that their colleges and universities must do more to help them surmount. All right, so we have images establish contrast between expectations and the realities of college students. All right, you've all seen movies about college students and they all are happy-go-lucky, but they don't really cover mental health. All right, we don't need a source here because she is generalizing this information, but she does come up with a clear thesis statement right here. These students endure social stigma and barriers to treatment that their colleges and universities must do more to help them surmount. All right, so in our summary, we could write that she is presenting a contrast between our views of college and the realities for many students. And the purpose is to introduce the issue and to state claim or thesis. All right, so in paragraph 2, the numbers of college students suffering from psychological problems are staggering. A 2006 survey conducted by the American College Health Association found that 66% of students have experienced feelings of hopelessness, more than 75% have felt overwhelmed or gone through a period of severe sadness, nearly 50% have been so depressed that they had trouble functioning, 15% have been formally diagnosed with depression, and almost 10% have contemplated suicide. And we have a citation right here. The simple fact, unknown to many, is that a college student is more likely than not to experience a severe psychological problem at least once. In other words, such problems are a common aspect of college life. All right, this book was published in 07, I think, or 08, so we would look for more recent sources. If we were writing about something of this nature, we would try to find things ideally in the last 5 years, but potentially in the last 5 to 10 years. Currency of sources is very important because things like this change rapidly and all kinds of studies are continuously being done. All right, but for her paper, this is an excellent time frame. All right, so what she's doing here is she's presenting some statistics, and it tells us to establish the scope of the problem. And she is citing a paraphrase, and it only includes the page numbers because she includes the author's name in the text. The American College Health Association introduces the information that she has paraphrased, and we know when that information ends because we have the parenthetical citation around the page number. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, so on our graphic organizer, basically she is paraphrasing statistics and so her purpose here is that she is bringing in research, she is using data to support her claim. There is evidence out there that she has something legit that she is able to analyze based on her preliminary and early research. Yes, sir.
I can get that sheet.
All right, so in paragraph 3, would somebody like to read this for me? Despite the prevalence.
Despite the prevalence of depression and related disorders on campus, however, most students avoid seeking help when they need it. The American Psychiatric Association maintains that most mental health issues, depression especially, can be managed or overcome with treatment by therapy and/or medication. But among students with diagnosed depression, according to the American College Health Association, only 26% get therapy and only 37% take medication. One reason for such low numbers can be found in a survey conducted by NPDU, a resource network for college students, and the JED Foundation, an organization dedicated to reducing suicide among college students. Only 22% of students would be willing to ask for help, even if they were certain they needed it, because they perceive mental illness as embarrassing or shameful. Thus, students who need help suffer additional pain and no treatment because they fear the stigma of mental illness.
All right, good. So what is the problem as presented in this paragraph? People aren't coming out and asking for help. Why? Because there's a stigma around mental illness. So her purpose here is to illustrate the problem. All right, so she is bringing a contrast in, and the contrast is the need for help versus the stigma. Which happens to also be the problem. And I would like to point out that she also is citing some really good sources here. All right, she is citing the American Psychiatric Association. And if you guys notice, the American Psychiatric Association here, she does not have a parenthetical citation. She brings in the American Psychiatric Association, but it is an online source, and we can see that if we look on her works cited page, that it is an online source. Therefore, there are not going to be any page numbers, so there's nothing to put in the parentheses here. All right? Over here, she is introducing these studies, and she's giving some information to us about the authors, all right, and she is citing numerical evidence, all right. And remember what we talked about when we did nonsense terms? Numbers are good and bad, all right. Numbers indicate precision, but they also can be used to mislead. So be careful when you're looking up statistics to make sure that your numbers are appropriate, all right. And here she has got some good evidence. These are good. All right, so her paragraph here has integrated information from 3 sources that are also supporting her own idea that students need help, but they don't get it because there's a stigma around mental illness that's not around physical illness. Okay, would someone like to read this paragraph? We've all heard. All right.
We all heard the horror stories about what happens when college students' mental illness goes unchecked. The 2007 tragedy at Virginia Tech, where a student killed 32 people before turning his gun on himself, is the latest and most extreme example. But the news media have been reporting such incidents with regularity since the time bringing down 16 classmates at University of Texas in 1966. In the past few years alone, a failing student with 3 professors at Arizona Nursing College, a student fatally shot one classmate and wounded another at an engineering technical college, and a graduate student murdered a professor and another student at the Appalachian School of Law. After repeated exposure to these kinds of stories, fear seems like a natural and reasonable response to mental illness.
Okay, so here she is making a really direct connection to her audience because we all are aware of what's going on in school shootings and what happened at Virginia Tech. Okay, so, logically this is something in the news, but emotionally she is making a connection to us. This is a real problem that we're seeing. And these 2 examples, or these 3 examples, 4 examples that she's giving us are not only isolated. Wait, she's got 6, doesn't she? Wait, Virginia Tech, University of Texas, Arizona Nursing College, Louisiana Tech, and Appalachian School of Law. So she's got a lot of examples in here to support the severity of this problem with real-world examples. All right, so if we're going to look back at our graphic organizer for paragraph 4, she is giving specific examples of what this can lead to. All right, so this is an illustration of the dangers. And she's also making appeals to logos and pathos. And honestly, if you ask my opinion, she is making an ethos appeal, because an ethos appeal is where you are looking at the credibility of the person who is speaking. And if she's done this kind of research, then she is already establishing that she is a reliable and credible person to report on this problem. Okay? So she really has all of our appeals that are included if you were going to analyze the paragraph like that. And if you look on the side, your little side notes, the first thing it says is that we have her perceived consequences of untreated mental illness. But we also look at the idea that she has no source citation, because these are common knowledge and these facts available are in separate sources, so they're not going to be attributed to anything in specific. All right, the next paragraph. The news stories are misleading, however. So this is a refutation. Easy to create a refutation. Look at your words like, however, moreover, although. In a study of 15 years of news magazine coverage of bipolar disorder, a form of depression coupled with manic episodes, Carol Fletcher of Hofstra University concludes that journalists tend to link mental illness with a violent crime, even though most people with bipolar disorder are harmless. This tendency, Fletcher warns, feeds stereotypes while causing further damage to those living with mental illness. In a nation that generates 50 million prescriptions for antidepressants a year, our attitude to mental illness remains largely pornographic. The media foster a voyeuristic interest in a small minority of mentally ill who commit crimes, while providing little useful information to the 20 million other sufferers of psychiatric disability. Although there is little reason to fear people with mental disorders, we are bombarded with the message that they are dangerous. No wonder then that most college students hide their emotional problems from people who could help them, never guessing that half of their peers are struggling with the same issues. All right, so let's look at our notes. refutation of a common perception of mental illness, no parenthetical citation or block quotation for summary because the author Fletcher is named in the text and the online source has no page numbers. This is a long quote. The ellipsis indicates deletion of words from original passages, but a quotation of more than 4 type lines is set off and indented 10 spaces or 1 inch, additional from a regular indentation. All right, the long quotation is followed by Anya's interpretation and explanation of its significance for her thesis. All right, so in this paragraph, paragraph number 5, all right, we are looking at more of a refutation. And she is really talking a lot about how news perpetuates the stereotype. I don't know if I spelled it right. And like I was saying, I really like the way that the book has done this because it gives us additional kind of guidelines for writing research papers at the same time as looking at a social issues paper. All right, paragraph 6. Will someone read paragraph 6? Thank you.
As unfortunate as it is, social stigma is not the only barrier to treatment faced by students with mental illness. The uncertain availability of on-campus psychological care poses another obstacle. Creating and running a mental health system is expensive. Some schools can afford to offer comprehensive mental health programming that ranges from outreach to counseling to follow-up treatment, while others have minimal resources and can do little more than react to a crisis. While still others offer no counseling or treatment at all, struggling students who finally accept that they need help and work up the courage to ask for it may discover that they can obtain it, at least not easily. It's not hard to imagine that most students, especially those in the grip of depression, would give up.
All right, so additional information. She's looking at mental health care on college campuses and that availability. Her parenthetical citation of her summary includes authors' names that are not given in text and page numbers. If this source was electronic and did not have page numbers, it would only be the author names, and it's her interpretation of this evidence. So in paragraph 6, more evidence to support her claim, more outside research. We have another topic, like subtopic. So we have another possible barrier of help that is introduced here. All right, so in paragraph 7, even at schools that do offer mental health services, legal restrictions can make psychiatric intervention difficult or impossible. Tamar Lewin, an education specialist with the New York Times, points out that the Americans with Disabilities Act protects people with mental illness from discrimination. So schools cannot screen for psychological disorders or force students to obtain treatment unless a court declares them to be a threat. And because nearly all college students are adults, confidentiality rules prevent schools from notifying parents or teachers of potential problems without the student's written consent. Laws, A1. This combination of social stigma and legal obstacle creates an awkward dilemma. Students suffering from mental illness are reluctant to ask for help, yet the very people who can help are prevented from reaching out. The burden of treatment rests squarely on those who are suffering. Okay, so legal issues related to psychiatric care for college students is the topic of this paragraph. Her citations here and her parentheses on the next page clarify boundaries of information. Her citation includes shortened versions of the title to distinguish the source from another one by the same author. And this is her interpretation of Lewin's article. Okay, so paragraph 7, we have another barrier. And, it's interesting to think that in just 2 short years, your parents cannot email your teachers and ask for, progress updates or what your grades are, because your professors are going to respond back and say, I'm sorry, I can't communicate with you about this because your child is an adult now. Huh? That's pretty crazy, isn't it? Yeah, because I taught college, and if a parent ever emailed me, I would have to say, I'm sorry, I can't communicate with you about this. Your child is an adult. All right, paragraph 8. So what should concerned colleges and universities do? Perhaps the best solution is for them to take active steps to remove the stigma associated with mental illness. Just being open about the extent of depression and related disorders among college students is a start, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. For example, a simple poster campaign announcing the basic statistics of mental illness and assuring students that there is no reason to be ashamed of their feelings might reduce reluctance to seek help. Even if a campus has limited mental health facilities, prominently displaying links to good web resources on bulletin boards and on the school's website is an inexpensive and easy way to both normalize mental illness and to offer help. 2 excellent sites are Half of Us, which offers, among other things, a self-evaluation test for common psychological disorders and advice on where to go for help, and the American Psychiatric Association's Healthy Minds, which offers mental health information geared toward college students, video testimonials, and explanations of available treatments. So for the first time here in paragraph 8, what is she bringing in? A possible solution. Good. And she's backing it up with research. All right, paragraph 9. Students themselves can also take the lead in addressing mental health issues. At the University of Pennsylvania, junior Allison Malman started the 64-chapter student support group Active Minds after her brother's suicide jolted her into the conviction that students need to talk about what they are going through and share their experiences. Quoted in Lewin from Brother's Death. So this is a quote within another source, and that's how you would document that. At Smaller College, a freshman who was successfully treated for depression told her story in the school paper and helped dozens of other students recognize and seek help for their illnesses. As these examples show, students everywhere can make an enormous difference simply by sharing their feelings. All right, so here she's bringing other suggestions. Can you see? All right, in paragraph 10, students are in a unique position to help each other through mental illness, but they should not be left to do this important work on their own. Colleges and universities need to collaborate with students to erase the stigma associated with mental illness, to encourage students to get help when they need it, and to prevent the kinds of sensational violence that dominate the news. All right, so here she is obviously summarizing everything that she's done. And she is creating her conclusion, but in her conclusion, she is also doing what? Providing us with what? Yeah, kind of a call to action. She's like, we need to do these things. All right? We need to help this problem. All right, and so then you see the works cited page. And so when you're working on your works cited page, you can kind of go back to this and you can look at what she has done. All right, I want you to turn this paper over to the back. And I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to be doing tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow and Friday, you guys are going to be reading 2 essays of your choice from our book. Okay? So, I believe in allowing you choice to explore your ideas, and so you're going to read 2 essays of your choice from our book. And I want you to jot down just a few that you might be interested in on the back of this piece of paper as I kind of talk through this, just to kind of give you a heads up on that. I'm going to tell you about the ones that I know about and the topics that they cover. Even if you already have chosen a topic that is outside of the scope of these, you still do need to read 2 of these essays and complete the purpose summary graphic organizers just like we did just now, because this is really good practice for the ACT and the AP exam in reading comprehension. All right? So our first essay here is about disability, and how disabilities are portrayed in the media, and why the media carries so few images of people like herself with disabilities. So if you're interested in doing anything about disabilities, I would read this, because even if it is not exactly your topic, there might be some passages in this essay that you can incorporate into your paper. All right? We just read an essay by Rosie Anya, and this is another one she wrote about mental illness and how it is depicted on television. So if you're worried about that, anxiety, depression, any of those type of topics, this might be something you would be interested in reading. Like I said, if something appeals to you, jot the title down on the back of your sheet. We just read The Best Kept Secret on Campus. All right, Maya Angelou here, one of my favorite writers. This is actually a paired selection, and these are cultural differences. And Maya Angelou's essay is about an African-American fighter, and they're watching this fight, and she is connecting the race of the fighter to, her race. And then Amy Tan is a Chinese author, and her essay Fish Cheeks is where she's really analyzing how she's a little bit embarrassed of her Chinese culture, even though, it's something that she should be proud of in the face of, a boy from school. Playing games, the importance of games. And I like this book, too, because it gives you a little blurb about each. This one is performing unusual rituals each year to kind of keep your mind and body spiritually, active. This is a very interesting one, too. If you're interested in science or medicine, grade A, the market for a Yale woman's eggs. A student could make big money by selling her eggs for fertility. But, what are the ethics behind that? And is it right or wrong for people to, try to create perfect children through our medical technology? I wouldn't do the lottery because it's considered to be fiction. But if you want to read it, by all means do, because it is so good and so creepy. Arm Wrestling with My Father, about how becoming an adult changes your relationships with your parents. And the same for Shooting Dad. Her dad, he loves guns and going out and shooting, and she, is recognizing connections with him. Orange Crush, commercialism and advertising. Morbid fascination with his reflection. I've actually not read that one. I want to. On Compassion and Homeless. This is a paired selection too. So if you're interested in doing something on poverty or homelessness as your problem, I would definitely read these because they're really good. And right here, Black Men in Public Space is one of my favorite essays of all time. It is so good. It's so powerful. It's by Brent Staples, and he is talking about stereotypes and how we view others based on stereotypes and judge them, and we alter our reactions and our perceptions of people based on those things. It's so good. This one by Roger Rosenblatt is on free speech, if that's something you're interested in. All right, turning the page. Female body images, size 6, the Western Women's Harem. Female body images. Then we have anti-gay discrimination, and there's some other articles about gay rights. So also in here that you might be interested in too. If you're interested in studying the environment or environmental issues, How to Poison the Earth and Chronicles of Ice are really good. If you're interested in feminism, we read I Want a Wife and Not a Man on 5 Foxes. You couldn't do your readings on that, but it's something you might want to refer to later. Substance abuse problems in teenagers is The Myth of Doomed Kids. Girl is about her mother's expectations of her based on her society. This one is The Plot Against People. If you're all about decluttering and living a life in a tiny house, you might want to look at The Plot Against People. Here, words. All of these deal with communication, words and lying, and how we twist the things that we say by the way that we say them. And that would be, but what do you mean? What secrets tell? The ways we lie in the world of doublespeak. All right, if you're interested in globalization, you might want to read Live Free and Starve, or Silver or Lead. If you're interested in how to treat people, Be Cool to the Pizza Dude. All right. If you are interested in language and how racial slurs affect people, The Meanings of a Word and the Christine Leong piece would be good. But I want you to jot down a couple of these. We're not even close to being finished. There's others. We have same-sex marriage as a topic here. We have racial profiling and immigration here. So there's a whole lot of different topics that you guys can look at. I want you to jot down a couple titles on the back of this graphic organizer and give it to me before you leave. It's going to be a little homework grade. The graphic organizer